Hello everyone. So today we are going to uncover the hidden muscular floor that keeps your pelvic organ from collapsing. So in this way, let's start our today's class on pelvic diaphragm. What is diaphragm? So what is diaphragm? Diaphragm is what? It is a partition that separates or divides the upper above compartment from below lower compartment. So as we all know, the thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. So it's given in the name thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. So it is a partition that separates the thorax above from the abdominal part below. So in this way, we'll see what is pelvic diaphragm. Pelvic diaphragm is nothing, but it also separates the above pelvic viscera from the below perineum. Okay, so the perineum part we'll discuss in the next lecture. So firstly, we'll see what is this pelvic diaphragm. So what is the pelvic diaphragm? It separates the above pelvic viscera from the below perineum. So this pelvic diaphragm, it is a muscular partition which is slung like a hammock. So what is hammock? So you can see in this diagram, this is what hammock is. Okay, so hammock is what? So you can see one pillar is here, one pillar is here. So it is hanging some like gutter like sack that is hanging. So this is what hammock like structure which is present in our pelvic cavity that separates. So if this is the hammock, it separates above, so pelvic viscera from below perineum. So what is pelvic diaphragm? It is a gutter shaped muscular partition that is slung like a hammock that will separate the above pelvic viscera from the below perineum. So now we'll see how what structure, what muscle will form this pelvic diaphragm. Okay, so for that, firstly we'll see one diagram. So as all of you know, this is what pelvic inlet and this is what pelvic outlet. So you can see this is whole what? This is pelvic girdle that is formed by the hip bone and the sacrum. So this is sacrum and this is hip bone. So this together will form pelvic girdle. So the above where the abdomen is opening into the pelvic cavity, that is what? Pelvic inlet. And where the pelvic cavity is opening outside, that is what? Pelvic outlet. So why I am showing this diagram? Because in this pelvic cavity only our pelvic diaphragm is located. So if this is the pelvic cavity, here in this part the pelvic diaphragm will be located. Okay, so here only in this part the pelvic diaphragm will be located. So the pelvic diaphragm, it has two components. Firstly, the muscular component and the fascia. So the two muscles form this pelvic diaphragm: Levator Ani and Coccygeus. So if this is the pelvic diaphragm, above to this diaphragm there will be one fascia attached, below to that there will be some fascia attached. So what are that fascia? Superior fascia and inferior fascia. Okay, so we have seen the muscular partition is formed by Levator Ani and Coccygeus. If in a simple way, if you have to tell, so all the muscles will come and attached in the middle part. So from the lateral pelvic wall, if this is the lateral pelvic wall, from that a muscular partition will come towards the midline. Similarly, from the opposite side, it will come towards the midline where all the viscera will be going down towards the perineum. For example, the bladder, the uterus, and the rectum and the anal canal. So this will be present in the midline structure. So from the lateral pelvic wall, the diaphragm will come from the lateral pelvic wall towards the midline structures. So in this way, the pelvic diaphragm is formed, and it is formed by what? Two muscles, Levator Ani and Coccygeus. So this Levator Ani, it has two components. The one, Pubococcygeus, and the other one is Iliococcygeus. So Pubococcygeus and Iliococcygeus, and in the whole sum you can say this, the whole Levator Ani, it originates from firstly the pelvic surface of pubic bone, tendinous arch or white line of pelvic fascia, and the third and the last one, the pelvic surface of ischial spine. So this both the muscles originate from pelvic surface of pubic bone, tendinous arch or the white line of pelvic fascia and the pelvic surface of the ischial spine. So now we'll see this in the diagram. So from this undersurface, this area, this is called what? Pelvic surface of pubic bone. And here you can see ischial spine. So this is the pelvic surface of ischial spine. And one more part where the pelvic, Levator Ani gets originate is the tendinous arch or white line of pelvic fascia. So for that we'll see, this is the, you can say, if the whole pelvis, if it is cutted in the sagittal section and we are viewing from front, so this is the sagittal section. So in this you can see, this is pubis, pubic bone, this is ilium, this is ischium, and this is sacrum. So, and this is obturator foramen, which is covered by obturator membrane. Above this, there will be one muscle present. That is what? Obturator internus muscle. This obturator internal muscle will be covered by one fascia. So that fascia is what? Obturator fascia. So this obturator fascia is nothing but the continuation of the fascia transversalis from the abdomen, which will continue down in the lateral pelvic wall as pelvic fascia. So, and in the as it is covering the obturator internus muscle, we are calling it obturator fascia. At the lower end of this obturator fascia, there will be attachment of this tendinous arch. So that's why this tendinous arch. So that's why this tendinous arch is also called as white line or tendinous arch of pelvic fascia. So now we know Levator Ani originate from the pelvic surface of the pubic bone, tendinous arch or the white line of pelvic fascia, and the pelvic surface of the ischial spine. Now we'll draw this pelvic inlet part in a schematic diagram. So I'm making the hip bone. Just schematically I'm drawing the hip bone. So if this is the midline, somewhere here I'm making the sacrum, and here I'm drawing the coccygeus. Okay, so and here between the pubic bone there will be pubic symphysis. Okay, now firstly we'll draw the midline structure before drawing this pelvic diaphragm. So what are the midline structure? From anterior to posterior, firstly we'll have what? The urethral opening. Then behind to this urethral opening, if the female is there, then there will be vaginal orifice. Then behind to this, there will be one fibromuscular node will be present, that is called as perineal body. So we will study about this fibromuscular node in detail while studying the perineum. So let's see. Now behind to this perineal body, there will be opening of the anal canal, or you can say so this is urethral orifice, this is vaginal orifice, this is perineal body, and this is anal orifice. Now this urogenital structure will be in the form of gap, so that is also called as hiatus semilunaris. So this is what? Hiatus semilunaris. Oh, sorry. Hiatus urogenitalis. Now let's draw firstly the Levator Ani. So the Levator Ani, the Levator Ani it has two components, as we know, Pubococcygeus and Ischiococcygeus. Now, firstly, we'll talk from behind will come forward. Okay, so this Ischiococcygeus, it arises. So one more muscle will draw here. So here I am drawing. This is obturator internus. This is obturator internus muscle, and this obturator internus muscle will be covered by obturator fascia. So the lower end of the obturator fascia, there will be attachment of tendinous arch or the white line of pelvic fascia. So this is what? White line. Now, first we will draw Iliococcygeus. Before that, from the anal orifice toward the tip of the coccyx, one more raphe will be present. This is called as anococcygeal raphe. What? Anococcygeal raphe? It is present from the anorectal junction towards the tip of the coccyx. So this is anococcygeal raphe. Now let's draw the Iliococcygeus muscle. So the Iliococcygeus muscle, it arises from the posterior half of the tendinous arch and the pelvic surface of the ischial spine, and it will come in this way. In the midline, it will come and attach. So if I'm making here ischial spine. So in this way, the muscle is coming from the posterior half of the tendinous arch and the ischial spine, and it is coming and attaching to the anococcygeal raphe and tip of the coccyx bone. So this muscle is what? Iliococcygeus muscle. Now, in front of this Iliococcygeus muscle, there will be Pubococcygeus proper muscle. So this Pubococcygeus is divided into Pubococcygeus proper, Puborectalis, Puboanalis, and Pubovesicalis or Pubovaginalis. So the Levator Ani is as two components, Pubococcygeus and Iliococcygeus. The Pubococcygeus is further divided into Pubococcygeus proper, Puborectalis, Puboanalis, Pubovesicalis or Pubovaginalis. Now we'll draw this in the diagram. So the Pubococcygeus, it arises from the, so we'll change the color for the muscle. The Pubococcygeus proper, it arises from the anterior half of the tendinous arch, and it will come and overlap the Iliococcygeus and attach to the anococcygeal raphe. So it will arise from the anococcygeal raphe, and it will come and overlap the Iliococcygeus and come and attach to the anococcygeal raphe. So this muscle is Pubococcygeus proper. Now, Puborectalis. So what is Puborectalis? It is not a whole muscular content. It is just like a sling content. So it is also called as Puborectalis sling. So I am making it with a different color. So this Puborectalis is a sling that will come and cover the posterior part of the anorectal junction. So this is what? Puborectalis. It acts like a sling. So the importance of this puborectal sling is, during the defecation, as we know, this rectum and the anal canal is not a straight tube. It is a curved structure. But during the defecation, this puborectal sling, it relaxes, and the rectum and the anal canal becomes a straight tube with the help of the one more muscle. Now I am drawing, that is Puboanalis. So the Puboanalis, so this Puboanalis will come and attach into the wall of the anal canal. So this muscle is what? Puboanalis. So what is the role of this puboanalis? So when this puborectalis sling get relaxed, so the anal canal and the rectum will become a straight tube. So to becoming the straight tube, this puboanalis will elevate the anal canal. So in this way, the straight tube is formed and the defecation process occurs. Now, along this hiatus urogenitalis, one more muscle will be present. That will be what? Pubovaginalis in female, and so it will arise from the undersurface or the pelvic surface of the pubic bone, and it will come and attach to this perineal body. So this muscle is what? Pubovaginalis in female and pubovesicalis in male. So in this way we have drawn the whole levator ani. So the levator ani has two components. One is Iliococcygeus and one this whole thing. So this is Iliococcygeus and this whole is levator ani, which is divided into, from anteriorly we will see pubovaginalis or pubovesicalis, then puborectalis, then so this is what? Levator ani. So this levator ani has pubovaginalis, pubovesicalis, then puboanalis, then puborectalis, then pubococcygeus proper. Now what is left? The coccygeus or the Ischiococcygeus. Why this coccygeus is called as Ischiococcygeus? Because it is getting arise from the ischial spine. So from the ischial spine, towards the coccyx and lower part of the sacrum, from the ischial spine towards the coccyx and the lower part of the sacrum. So this muscle is what? Ischiococcygeus or the coccygeus. But the most of the posterior fibers of this Ischiococcygeus get degenerated to form one ligament. So this posterior part get degenerated to form one ligament. That is what? Sacrospinous ligament, because from the sacrum toward the ischial spine. So that is what? Sacrospinous ligament. So most of the part of this Ischiococcygeus get degenerate to form what? Sacrospinous ligament. So in this way, we have made the whole pelvic diaphragm that is coming from the lateral pelvic wall towards the midline structures. That is what? The urethra, vaginal orifice and the anorectal junction. So seeing this, we can say the pelvic diaphragm. What are the functions of the pelvic diaphragm? So what? Firstly, from front we'll say, so in females, so it is what? Holding the vaginal wall like as a sphincter. So that's why this pubovaginalis act as a sphincter vaginale. If this muscle is weak, so the uterus can come into the vagina, so the uterine prolapse can happen. So this pelvic diaphragm will prevent this uterine prolapse. Then in the male, as we know, in the lower end of the urinary bladder, the prostate is present. So this pelvic diaphragm will help in elevating the prostate. So this pubovesicalis is also called as levator prostate in terms of prostate gland. Okay, so the two things we have seen, and we have also know during the defecation the puborectalis sling gets relaxed, so the rectum and the anal canal forms a straight tube and the defecation process occurs. And one more thing, in the micturition process, in micturition the pubococcygeus relaxes. When the intra-abdominal pressure rises, this pubococcygeus relaxes and the neck of the bladder will descend down, and this descending of the neck will contract the detrusor muscles of the urinary bladder, and in this way the voiding of urine will occur. And so in this way we have completed almost all the functions of the pelvic diaphragm, and we know now the muscles of the pelvic diaphragm, that are what? Levator ani and coccygeus. Levator ani is divided into pubococcygeus and Iliococcygeus. Pubococcygeus we know also further divided into pubovaginalis, puboanalis, puborectalis and pubococcygeus proper. And we also know this all levator ani, where it originates and how it comes in the midline, and how this coccygeus muscle will degenerate to form sacrospinous ligament. So in this way, we'll conclude the class of pelvic diaphragm. Please share, like and subscribe my channel. Thank you.